Hi all, so my name is Ned. Ned, there we go. and I'm part of Team Charlotte. As you've just heard, we've been working very closely with Team Nashville, but instead of predicting individual officers at risk of an adverse incident, we've instead been working at the dispatch level. So right off the bat, it's probably sensible to run through what a dispatch is. So an event occurs, and here it seems like Batman has decided to rob a bank. So someone calls 911, they get through to a dispatcher. That dispatcher then sends one or more officers to attend to the scene of the crime. And it's been our job over the course of the summer to work out whether this sequence of events will lead to an adverse incident or not. So how do we do that? Well, this being data science for social good, the rather self-evident answer is that we use data. So we have data about the dispatch, so we kind of know the priority of the dispatch, the neighborhood that it's in, the time of day of the dispatch. We also have data regarding the officers, so things like their arrest history, the neighborhoods they've been working in, the shift patterns that they've been on. And using all these types of things on the left, we want to try and work out whether any given dispatch will lead to an adverse incident or not. So that's to say whether there'll be an improper use of force, a sustained complaint, or a preventable accident. So to give you a little bit of context about what things look like on the ground, this is a map of the center of Charlotte, which is in North Carolina. Now, each of the blue dots that I've overlaid here represents a single dispatch that occurred during the course of a week in the summer of 2014. And there are around 25,000 of them. Now, these three red dots represent the individual dispatches where something adverse actually happened. So those three adverse dispatches is obviously a very, very, very tiny proportion of the original 25,000. So finding or predicting these adverse dispatches is really like finding a needle in a haystack. So all of that being said, can we actually find this needle in the haystack? Can we predict these adverse dispatches? Well, if we take the riskiest 1% of our predictions, we find that they contain about 30% of all the adverse dispatches. And of the dispatches that we label as being adverse, around 1% of them actually turn out to be correct. So that might not sound wildly impressive to you right now, but you have to bear in mind that if you just randomly select dispatches, if you just pick them up at random, then you'll find an adverse dispatch just 0.03% of the time. So we're actually improving on random picking by a factor of 30. So perhaps we're not doing ever so well in absolute terms, but we're doing pretty great in relative terms. So before I sign off, I just want to kind of run through how these results might be applied in reality, how this might end up in a productionized system. So if we go back to our example of Batman robbing the bank, the call comes into the dispatcher, and they might have a choice of sending 3 units. We could then run our model, and it might spit out that 2 of those units were at a particularly high risk of an adverse incident. So our dispatcher could then send the appropriate unit to the appropriate crime, thus lowering the likelihood of anything untoward happening. And it's our hope that this system, if it's multiplied over many, many dispatches, can ultimately help the police to better serve their communities. Thank you very much.